Hello, live again. Testing the patience of all the viewers. Uh, it's beyond my control. I have been apologizing, but it's really beyond my control. I have Wi-Fi, I have 4G, but still this is the situation. Anyways, coming back, so I have discussed Water Act, Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, and I have also discussed Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act. Now I will shift to the most important act for prevention and control of pollution, and that is Environment Protection Act. Again, if you will see, the nomenclature which we are using over here is Environment Protection Act. So we are trying to protect the environment, and so the act itself, the nomenclature itself tells us that now we are going to have a more stringent provisions which have been included in this Environment Protection Act. Environment Protection Act has also been called as an umbrella legislation. It actually comes as a reaction to Bhopal gas disaster, the disaster which occurred in 1984. When this disaster occurred, factually we were not having any provision at place to deal with industrial accidents and the pollution which has caused due to the industrial accident. This entire scenario, industrialization, accidents which might take place, the pollution which might take place due to the accidents, was a new phenomena. And so in 1986, while establishing this new legislation, we decided to develop it as inclusive as possible. If you'll see, Water Act is dealing with water pollution, Air Act is dealing with air pollution. What about soil pollution? What about land degradation? What about many other types of pollutions? How to deal with them? Those questions were there in front of legislators, and so the strongest legislation was established in 1986, that is Environment Protection Act. Under the Environment Protection Act, the term environment has been defined. How to define this term? Now, the term environment includes biotic and abiotic components, both their interaction and their interaction with property as well. So in the layman's terminology, if I want to say, everything under the sun has been covered under this definition called environment. And the central government and the state government as well have all the powers to regulate the activity which may harm this environment. So for the protection of environment, the definition which I just now discussed, which is covering water, air, forest, wildlife, covering everything, including the property, concept of property which humans have established. If there is any activity which is harmful to this environment, then the central government and the state government has all the power to make rules and regulations and to control these activities. The Environment Protection Act also has defined the schedule for the hazardous substances. Now, here I will take a moment to describe the strict liability and absolute liability. Now, all those industries who are dealing in hazardous substances have to bear the absolute liability. They do not have the exemptions which are there with the strict liability or which are there with the vicarious liability. That means whose fault it is immaterial. आपल्याकडे संस्कृतमध्ये एक श्लोक आहे, सह इंद्राय तक्षकाय स्वाहा. म्हणजे ज्या कोणी चूक केलेली असेल तो मनुष्य की जो रिस्पॉन्सिबल आहे, स्किल्ड आहे, कॉन्ट्रॅक्टर असेल, एक्सटर्नल एजन्सी असेल, त्यांची चूक झाली असेल तर जो ओनर आहे त्याच्या सकट ज्यानं चूक केली किंवा ज्याचा निग्लिजन्स असेल की तो रिस्पॉन्सिबल ठरेल. No fault liability also is the term which is used. Whatever might be the fault, the responsibility will be given or will be casted upon the industrialist or those who are establishing the industries. I am sorry for all the technical problems, for the double voice or for breaking in between. Am I not audible still? Is my voice breaking or not reaching to you properly? All is clear. Okay, fine, thank you. So, under the Environment Protection Act, the central government or the state government can establish various rules, regulations, and notifications as well. Every time, the central government or state government need not have to go to the parliament to get sanction. They can have these notifications established. Now, if you will see, there are important notifications which have been enacted or brought under the Environment Protection Act. The first very important notification for the commercial establishments for developments is Environment Impact Assessment. This notification came into existence way back in 1994. Over the period of time, many amendments kept occurring. The recent most notification is of 2006, which is still in existence. We are implementing this notification, and currently the draft notification of 2020 is there on the Ministry of Environment and Forest website, and it is open for public suggestions and objections. So any one of you who feel interested, they can very well go on to the website of Ministry of Environment and Forest and have a look at this particular notification. Now, what is this notification? Environment Impact Assessment. So if the eligible projects, those which have been listed in the schedule of the 2006 notification, those projects will have to go for prior study, assessment as to what is the impact of this particular activity, this particular commercial establishment on the environment. Now, many a times this particular notification and the notifications which or the rules and regulations which were developed under the Environment Protection Act have been considered as hurdle in the development, or additional requirement which is for stopping the development, etc. But in reality, if you will see the objective of this particular notification, this study is giving a chance to the proponent to understand all the risks which are involved in the execution of the project. So this environment impact assessment authorities have been developed, and the proponent has to apply to those authorities, take prior environmental clearance, and then only they can start the development. Again, following the provisions attracts the punishment under the Environment Protection Act. So punishments have not been discussed in the notification. The punishments have been discussed in the Environment Protection Act. Environment Impact Assessment notification was made applicable to the construction and area development industries from 2004 onwards. Again, there are a lot of variations, lot of pros and cons, lot of agitations, lot of controversies, but it is applicable to the larger projects which are beyond 20,000 square meters of the area. For such projects, we have to go for prior environmental clearance. I have 15 minutes to go and lot to cover, but I will cover one more very important notification, and that is Coastal Regulation Zone notification. Our country is blessed with the coastline of 7,500 kilometers. So we have many states along the coastline. Now, protection of this coastal line or coastal areas is very, very important and crucial from economic point of view and from environmental point of view as well. Coastal Regulation Zone notification, the first notification came out in 1991. Then it was upgraded in 2011. In 2011 we started taking the seaward side area into consideration. Till then we didn't consider seaward side area into coastal regulation zones. But from 2011 onwards we started taking that area also into consideration, and in 2018 we have again changed this notification, and we have now given special, it's actually from 2011 itself, given special separate treatment to the cities which have already completely developed on the coastal line or seashores, like Mumbai or Kochi. These areas, there were many developments which were hampered because of the earlier coastal regulation zone notification. People were not able to develop the dilapidated buildings. The properties were lying unutilized, and that's why the changes were done. Along with this, we also have a separate notification for all our islands. We have very prominent islands at strategic locations, and for the protection of them we have developed a separate notification which is giving separate treatment. Now all these notifications, along with the notifications, we also have developed we also have various rules to treat waste. We have municipal solid waste management rules, we have biomedical waste management and handling rules, we have hazardous waste management and handling rules. Under the hazardous waste management and handling rules, we are now also treating and managing e-waste. So this all set of rules and regulations are covered by the Environment Protection Act. To regulate, implement, govern all these laws, we have a list of authorities who are taking care of it, and the list of, or the number of judicial forums which are also dealing with these problems, legal disputes and the offences. The lowermost authority who can take the cognizance of the offences under these laws is Metropolitan Magistrate or JMFC. They are the one who have to take the cognizance. Then we have the hierarchy of courts on the criminal side. We have also established the National Green Tribunal under the National Green Tribunal Act of 2010. To understand the number of aspects on the prevention of pollution side, we can go through all the cases which were fought by the eminent lawyer Mr. MC Mehta. So you can just Google MC Mehta versus Union of India, and you will get at least roughly 20-25 odd cases, which the set of these cases actually have established the modern environmental jurisprudence of India. This is what is the overview. The NGTs have now been established as the appellate authority, but one important point, the NGTs are taking care of the civil side of the problem. The NGT do not have the right to punish the wrongdoer. For that, again, the case has to be initiated in the criminal courts. But barring that, NGT can take the cognizance of Environment Protection Act, of Air and Water Act, all the notifications and rules under it. NGT can also take the cognizance of matters under Section 2 of the Forest Conservation Act and the Biological Diversity Act. So all these acts are coming well within the jurisdiction of the Environment Protection Act. That is all about what I can discuss. Many authorities have been created under this set of laws which are trying to protect environment, wilderness, forest, wildlife on one side, and on the other side are trying to prevent the pollution and harm to whatever is left for our future generations. I will stop here. We have 10 minutes. Maybe in 5 minutes you can raise the questions. I will try to answer as many as possible. Meanwhile, let me announce that on the 28th of May 2020, Honorable Justice Ambadas Joshi is going to share his knowledge on jurisdiction of Maharashtra Administrative Tribunals with us. So on 28th May at 6 p.m. Let us come together again to get the insights from a very eminent and senior speaker, Justice Ambadas Joshi. Yeah, in the questions, one question is about a particular PIL. Probably, maybe we can discuss it individually, because it is very specific judgment, and we might have to dwell in various aspects of it. One of the question which has been asked here, which I am able to see, can NGT hold for contempt? So contempt of court also can be addressed by the NGT, but NGT cannot declare any kind of punishment. So NGT can decide about it, but NGT won't be able to give the punishment. Yeah, so I'm just checking, because I'm not really, as I said, techno-friendly. I'm not able to check all the questions which were raising. So the coordinators are sending me the questions. Yeah, apart from the particular PIL, is there any other question? You can write in the chat box. Yeah, in that case, I will end the session again with a reminder that on 28th May, the Honorable Justice and an eminent speaker, Ambadas Joshi, is going to share his thoughts on jurisdiction of Maharashtra Administrative Tribunals at 6 p.m. I'm very thankful to Vidhi Foundation and my friend Ranjit Ji Sangle for giving me this opportunity to reach to you. If time permits, and if the foundation feels, we may discuss certain specific laws again. Thank you. Stay safe and stay at home. Thank you.